Hi, this is Anjana. Welcome to my studio. This is my first attempt at trying to capture a still life watercolor painting of a bunch of fresh fruits. In this video, I'd like to show you how to do a painting in a realistic manner. To begin, let me list down the materials. I use cold press watercolor paper, Winsor Newton watercolors, a set of brushes. My favorite is my flat brush, which you can see by now is very old. For the initial sketch, I use pencil and eraser. To paint, I have a container for water, few kitchen towels, and my reference, fresh fruits from my kitchen. I normally start with a light sketch. I don't draw every line and shade, however, just enough to give me confidence to paint well. So basically, you need a good foundation sketch, but not a complete one. I'm starting with yellow first. And once I'm done with the bananas, I move to the next fruit. So I'm giving the first wash here, the lightest shade, light yellow. To give the light value, I mix more water with the color for the first wash. And then as I advance to the next washes, I would give darker shades. And at the end, I would finish with the highlight. The basic of watercolor is to always start with light shade because you cannot erase or cover up easily in watercolor. It's very important to keep that in mind. And in order to dry, I try to dry after every wash before applying the paint next. And for that, I go for a hairdryer, which can easily help you dry. And then I apply the next wash with a darker shade. So I'm coming closer to finishing the first wash. So now I can go ahead and dry it. I quickly dried it and I'm applying the next layer of paint. So if you do not dry and then go to the next layer, what happens is your painting could be messed up with too much water. So when it's still wet, there are advantages of removing some paint by dabbing out some color. But if you want to paint another layer over it, it's always best to dry it before going to the next layer. So the next layer is darker, and the one after that is going to be more dark. And at the end, I would give the highlights. So it's when you give the highlights that realism comes in, And I completely enjoyed that part of the painting, where the realism starts, showing up. So wherever I'm giving the darker shade right now is the exact same place where I would give the highlight at the end. So once I'm done with the bananas, I would start giving the highlights of the bananas so that, you can start feeling that it looks like a real bunch. Even the shadows can, give a lot of realism. Like where sun falls, where the sunlight falls, and those white spaces. We need to always make sure that white space is left as is until the very end. And I also try to give some texture to the painting at this moment, at this part of the wash. Like I'm adding some green there, I'm dabbing some green there to give that a realistic look. Because if you see some fruits as they ripen, you could see more yellow and green. So that's exactly why I'm adding some green there. And it's exact same technique that I'm using for every fruit in this painting. I give its natural color at first, and then the texture, for the texture I add some green and some yellow. And for the highlight, I always use a mix of French ultramarine, cadmium red, and ivory black. That's what I always use for highlights. And sometimes it's just French ultramarine and ivory black, that would be enough. But it depends on the color of the painting. Like if you can see this one, which I've finished, the highlights, those highlights are exactly a mix of French ultramarine, ivory black, and a little bit of cadmium red. I'm painting strawberries now. I have 3 strawberries there. I'm using magenta, yellow, and ultramarine colors, starting with the lightest value up until the darkest value. I normally go for 3 rounds of color, moving from the lightest to the darkest, and sometimes more or sometimes less. And as you can see, I'm using this small brush here because it's a small fruit, plus the texture of the fruit gives me the opportunity to leave more white space there to show sunlight falling on it and the darker area. So the small brush helps me paint it well, and it's the same way I've done the avocados too, which you will see soon, with lots of white spaces there because of the texture of the fruit. I'm going one fruit at a time, very, very patiently. When the paint is wet, you cannot apply more paint over it. It'll only spoil the painting. So, like I said earlier, I use a hairdryer to dry it up before applying the next round of paint. When it is still wet, there is opportunity to dab out some paint with a paper towel. So it's a good idea to always keep a paper towel handy. I'm applying the darker shades there, the magenta and the ultramarine. That's the highlight for this fruit. Since it's small, I applied the shade and the shadow there because it's just little. Otherwise, for all the other fruits, I'm giving the shadow at the end. Even while painting, I'm moving around the fruits, the reference fruits, here and there. Before doing the sketch, I did that a few times to help the sunlit portions. So I'm trying to give it more highlight. And I'm also going to do the leaves on the strawberry soon. So just those little additions of darker values. So for the leaves I'm using a mix of yellow and ultramarine. Even for the leaves I'm giving a few rounds of paint to make it look natural and real. You can see the addition of more paint just to the edges gives it the natural look. And it's the exact same way I'm doing the remaining fruits here. The apples, the blueberries, oranges, avocado, pears, and everything. Starting with a lighter shade, moving up until the darkest, ending with the highlights. I've also drawn a basket for the apples. I've left the white space for the avocado and blueberry. So once the highlights come, the realism kicks in. I've added a background and some color to give it a setting. So there you go. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you liked it and learned something. I will be posting more new videos. See you soon. Bye and have a nice day.